There we go.
I think
I
we're
think
live. There we
are we
go.
on?
We're live.
Brilliant.
I don't know how we see if anyone's even watching this, but we're just going to
Probably
chat
best we
anyway.
don't actually.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we'll just pretend that it's just us chatting. So, my
Exactly.
name's Jodie Goodchild. I am a business-to-business lead generation consultant. So I do consultancy and training on all things outbound lead generation. I'm doing this kind of laid back cuppa chat with some people that I know, because I find at the moment there's a massive stigma around the word lead generation. And I love lead generation. I've been in lead generation for 20 years. I know I don't look old enough, but I wanted to just do some kind of chats. Like, everyone has a break at 10 o'clock. We all normally get a cup of tea at 10 o'clock and we all normally chat. I'm going to say the word, we chat shit at 10 o'clock. So this is a chat 10 o'clock with a cup of coffee. So James is the first person that I knew that I wanted to talk to, because James and I connected. I can't even remember how we connected on LinkedIn, to be honest, but we networked with each other. And it wasn't until after we networked, we realized we'd actually worked at the same company at different times. But yeah, do you want to just introduce yourself, James, as well?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jodie. I'm James Caldicott. So I was in corporate software sales for 12 years. And in February this year, decided to go out on my own. So now what I essentially do is help coaches, consultants, service-based businesses, agencies build and scale their business on LinkedIn and other social platforms. So Jodie and I are very much in the same boat, I suppose. Obviously, it's very broad, lead generation and sales and growth, but in the same space. Yeah, but Jodie, great to be here, and thank you for asking me first, especially. I feel very special. I haven't got a cup of tea. I've got a Red Bull.
I was going to say that was going to be my first question. Like, what's your drink of choice? I've got a coffee and you've got a Red Bull. I appreciate sugar-free Red Bull though. Good choice. But one thing I really like about you, and the reason why I wanted to do this with you first, was because you're somebody that when I kind of delved into LinkedIn for the first time, you were somebody that I felt was doing it right. Like, you know, we both know we've both been in telemarketing. That's how we both started our careers years ago, which was absolute Wolf of Wall Street. Like, let's smash the phones, make 20 calls an hour. Let's, create the biggest slip and slide we can make in the office and all that kind of crap, which was amazing back in the day. Can't do any of that stuff now, but it was great. And now things have really changed. And for me, recently, and what's made me do this LinkedIn Live is that I realized I had like nearly 5,000 connections on LinkedIn, which is mega. But I probably only actually know a handful of them. And most of the people that I know are people that I've probably worked with at some point. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go through and I'm going to message some people. I'm going to send a nice message saying, realized we're connected. We haven't spoken. How's business going for you? Just to give you a bit of info about me, I'm Jodie. I've been in outbound B2B lead generation for the last 20 years, and looking to just find out who the face is behind the profile. And what really took me back is the amount of people that replied, like things like no thanks or not interested, purely because I've mentioned the word lead generation. And yet it's the lifeblood of every single business. Like, nobody can survive in business without doing some form of lead generation. Yet it is like the actual Voldemort, like, of LinkedIn. It's crazy. So I want to depict that for people that are coming into, that are new to this platform, that are doing lead generation for the first time, because I think it's something that they really need to understand when they join, because unfortunately, there are people doing it wrong. And from my perspective, I liken it to like a networking event, and there's all these amazing stands, there's a room full of people, and it's like quiet, and you can just hear like really nice like buzz of conversation going on, and then some idiot comes in with a megaphone and they're like, my name's John and I've got this platform for sale, like, who wants it? Like, and everyone turns around to him and they're like, mate, like, read the room. It's exactly the same on LinkedIn. Like, nobody wants that. Like, that might have worked back in the day, but nobody wants that now. People want relationships. So what I wanted to ask you first, and I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I had some good questions, is, in your experience, how has the perception of lead generation on platforms like LinkedIn changed over the years? And what do you think has contributed to the current apprehension that everyone has towards it?
Yeah, I think that it's changed massively. Like I said to you just before we went live, we both started in telemarketing. I was 12 years ago. You were a bit earlier than that. We both owned the businesses we both worked in. And it was very much phone up, phone down, make as many calls as you can. You'll get through to people, but you'd end up getting your result because you were persistent and you spoke to enough people and you got your meetings booked, right? That was lead generation. And I think companies accepted it back then as well. There was lots of companies that would happily pay telemarketing agencies a retainer every month because they knew they had to do
Yeah.
it. It was
Yeah.
just a way of life. And
Yeah.
I've seen it change hugely. And I think it's down to, well, there's a number of things. I said to you before this call, we could be on here for 2 hours talking about this, but
Yeah.
people get abused now.
Yeah.
So anyone that's got a business, who's got a title, founder, CEO, marketing director, it doesn't matter what you are, you're getting abused every single day on message by people trying to sell lead generation.
Yeah.
And I think it's the new world, because if you think about people like Alex Hormozy, people like
Yeah.
that are kind of teaching people exactly how to build businesses and how to build agencies. Well, you have, a much younger generation of person thinking they can go and make £1 million overnight by copying these YouTube videos and just going out there and
Yeah.
spamming people. So
Yeah.
it's like you're always trying to come up against the volume of these really ambitious whippersnappers who think they're going to create this like amazing business, but with no real credibility. But it
Yeah.
makes everybody else look really bad because there's so
Yeah.
much of it going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it comes down to, for me, it comes down to being creative, and we've actually changed the way that we position our approach to people now. So what we
Yeah.
do, rather than trying to send a DM, or we try and get to know someone first and put a calendar link in the message that everyone used to do years ago, and it used to work actually to a
Yeah.
certain extent. People
Yeah.
now just won't do that. So we try and create like a free lead magnet or something, just something that we can say to someone, hey, this is what we do, how are you doing? I've got nothing to sell you, but what I have got is something that I created for you. Would you mind if I sent it across? And it's just trying to step outside of the box to be that little bit different, to separate yourself from
Yeah.
everybody else. So yeah, I think you've got to be creative. It's just worlds apart from when we started.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what always worries me as well, is that those, like, I like the term you've used, like those whippersnappers. I'm sure they've got like a
Yeah.
name, like, is it like Gen Z or something like that? I don't know. I don't
I'm
know,
not
but something like that,
great at
isn't
that,
it?
there's a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah, neither am I. But like, I feel like some CEOs of companies don't understand the like intricacies of outbound lead generation, and they'll just get somebody like that person in to do their lead generation. And this poor CEO who spent like blood, sweat, and tears, as we know, on their brand name, and I can think of a number of businesses that I won't mention, but they're not known for their amazing product or service, which is what they should be known for. But you mention their name and someone goes, oh my God, like literally
Yeah.
these guys
Yeah.
send me so many messages, like I hate them, when actually their product or service is amazing. But it always almost like upsets me and makes me feel uneasy that
Yeah.
because a CEO doesn't understand it and they're trusting somebody to do it, and then they get somebody in the seat and they're just basically ruining their brand because they're not doing it properly. It's crazy.
Exactly.
And that's, like you said, it's the oversaturation of it. So one thing that I've been massive on, for the last, since COVID actually, is that I've noticed, and you've mentioned it today, like the difference in kind of the network building rather than just going in for it. And that's why I will say it, and I know it's a bit taboo and some people might not agree, but telemarketing, traditional telemarketing, it does work, but it will be super expensive to get it to work, because if it's just being done on its own and they're just making 20, 30, even if they've got software that's making 70 calls an hour and
Yeah.
they're just speaking to people on the phone, that just doesn't work anymore. It needs to be the combination of, email, calls, and LinkedIn together,
Yes.
with maybe
Exactly.
a bit of automation in the mix to create
Yeah.
relationships, rather than just going in and, I've got this thing, do you want it? And I get that, and it bugs me. Like, I'll get emails, and I've just noticed there's a massive shift anyway from the right companies, and that's why I really like what you do on LinkedIn, because you're offering things for free and you're teaching people things for free. Yeah, of course, you've got something to sell. We all have. No one does anything
Yeah.
with the ultimate aim of giving something free, but we build trust with people. And then when they've got a requirement, they'll be like, right, these people know what they're talking about because they've helped me with that, and I'm going to use them. So how do you think, like, on that subject, like, how do you think the culture of networking on LinkedIn needs to evolve to kind of counteract this negative connotation we've got associated with lead generation at the moment?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that it actually goes back to another problem that's happening for people,
Yeah.
and I think it's about perception. So it's like you and I talking to business owners about our services. Some of them might dismiss us or kind of give us a rude reply.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bigger problem. I think if you look at, again, I won't name names, but some of the bigger accounts on LinkedIn, some of the real LinkedIn brand specialists and copywriters and people that can help you build this amazing brand and get you floods of inbound leads every single day. I think there's a real issue in that space. and I'm not
Yeah.
scared to say it. Someone that's been kind of in the trenches around sales and lead generation for a very, very long time. I know this to be pretty accurate. Building a brand takes a very long time to do. But what a lot of people do, these big content creators, is they give this impression that all you need to do is build a brand. Because if you build a brand, you're going to get loads of inbound leads. So what that does is that tells everybody in the LinkedIn space that actually DMing is really bad, cold calling is really bad, because we're getting
Yeah.
told that all we need to do is build a brand, put a
Yeah.
content strategy together. And I
Yeah.
kind of said this actually on a recent podcast that I did. 92% of businesses fail within the first 12 months. And I think there's a huge part to play in that, because people think that just because they've got the knowledge, that's going to make them successful. And because they're trying
Yeah.
to build a brand, that's going to make them successful. And this is where you and I come in. And it's not going to be enough. You're not going to create a business that's successful by waiting for your brand to be built.
Yeah.
You need to be proactive. You need to send
Yeah.
DMs. You need to be putting yourself out there, offending people. Who cares? Like, put yourself out there, tell people what
Yeah.
you do. And for me, I send 100 connection requests every single week. I've done it for the last 45 weeks in a row. And then any person that accepts that connection request gets a 5-message sequence from me, every single one. Everyone.
Yeah.
And do I get people sometimes that say, "Oh, stop messaging me"? Yeah, I do, but I have to do that to try and survive. Because
Yeah.
until my brand gets to a point where it's big enough, where I am getting these inbound leads coming through. So I think it starts actually from the big creators kind of brainwashing people, telling them that, oh God, don't send spammy DMs. Don't do cold calling. Crikey, it's the worst way to ever do business on LinkedIn. You need to be building your brand. You need to be telling your story. It's not the reality of business. You can't build a business like that. It takes time.
No. Yeah, and it's not spammy if you make it human. And also,
Yeah.
like, for people like us, where we're like a one woman, one man band, it's impossible to not
Yeah.
not use like automation tools to help you do it. Doesn't mean that you're not being authentic. It's just being efficient with your
Exactly.
time, because there's only one of you. And when I first started out, and we were talking about this before we started, weren't we? How you learn things when you start running your own business, and you can't do it all. Like, you absolutely can't do it all. Like, you can't sit there
No,
for 3 hours a day and go through, right, these are, and why would you? If there's a quicker way to do that that can help you, why would you sit there
exactly.
and do it? Like, you're not going to survive in business by doing it. So yeah, I'm glad you've mentioned that, because it's
Yeah.
great. And I think there is a place for automation tools, actually. If you get it right, but it can also,
Exactly.
and I will stress, it is also being done so wrong. And it,
Exactly.
even with me saying, like, I want to talk to people about lead generation, I get frustrated when I get bad messages come through, because I'm just like, come on, like, you don't need
Yeah.
to do that anymore. Why are you still doing it? And it's just things where it's like, hi Jodie, I can help your government agency improve their connectivity issues.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm not even in government. Like,
What are
take
you
two
doing on the
seconds.
side, Jodie?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? I think personalization is huge. If you get that right, then I think that's where the sweet spot is with this. It's not going straight for the jugular, or like, oh, like, send me your website and I'll tell you how shit it is. That's another one I get all the time. I'm like, I've actually
Yeah.
just done it and I think it's all
Yeah.
right. Don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, I
the
get what
future
you.
of lead generation, then let's talk about that. If you could wave like a magic wand and change one thing about how we do lead generation on LinkedIn, what would that be?
So I think with every frustration comes an opportunity.
Yeah.
And I actually really enjoy the fact that people are really bad at it, because I think it gives you an opportunity as someone to separate yourself from the masses,
Yeah.
just with your quality and your customization and stuff like that. So I think if I was to wave a magic wand, I would just say, I think that people, I mean, there's a few things to this, but I think the first thing is I'd love people to be more open to the fact that we're just trying to build a business, and everyone's trying to
Yeah.
build a business. And before you write a message back, or you're negative around someone approaching you, just say to yourself, do you have a sales team that reach out to people? Because they're lining your pockets, and at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do for ourselves, is just
Yeah.
survive. So I just want that understanding to be better.
Yeah.
But in regards to the actual lead generation, the actual activity, I just hope that there is still a space where it allows for people that are much more experienced to showcase that.
Yeah.
I don't want us all to blend together and be this like, oh, everyone does lead generation, and Jodie and James, who've got like 32 years combined experience, is losing to people with 3 months experience. I
Yeah.
I just want to kind of make sure that there is still an opportunity for people to showcase kind of how different they are with their approaches. So yeah, it'll be interesting how it does develop. Because all these AI tools as well, right? Like lead generation and getting
Yeah,
interest is
there's so many.
always evolving. People are writing letters again, and that's
Yeah,
fair play
I
to them,
noticed
right?
that. Yeah,
It's
I
it's
thought,
it's
you know what? I used
creative.
to love that. I remember being a telemarketer, and we used to have two different types of campaign that would go out. You'd either get pure just telemarketing, where you'd get told the product and service and told, go figure out how to say this to people on the phone and go get leads. Or you'd
Yeah,
get the campaign where you'd get an email alongside it, where you'd literally be like, yes, like I'm going to get an email that's going to warm up the data. Or you'd get
yeah.
like the creme de la creme, where they'd
I
send
remember.
handwritten letters, like, or something, and you'd be buzzing because you'd literally smash that campaign and you'd get loads of leads in from
I
doing
love
it.
it.
Yeah, the old school days. But yeah, for me, when I realised that those days were done, it was actually at COVID, because before that, so I'd been at it's not a company anymore, which is really sad, Market Makers, for like 13 years,
Mm.
which was the UK's #1 B2B telemarketing agency / cult. I think if anyone worked there that watches this, they'll agree. But yeah, when I I've totally forgot where I was going with that. Beauty of life. I can't even remember, but
Letters,
yeah,
we were saying
anyway.
about like you had a
Letters,
campaign
yeah,
that's
and the
yes.
campaigns when you just, yeah, sorry, I know where I was going now. Totally lost my place there. That's because I haven't had a coffee yet. I've saved it for this
Yeah,
call. But yeah, you'd literally, like, when the letters went out, you would be like absolutely buzzing because you'd get it. But when I moved from that role into a SaaS business where we'd both worked, actually, my role was to go into the enterprise team and set up their sales development function from scratch. And
yeah,
everything I knew at that point was all about mindset and call numbers. Like, if you had the right mindset, you were saying the right thing and you were making the calls, you would get the leads. But
yeah,
COVID had just happened and nobody was on the phone. Like, you'd call a company and they'd be like, the line would just be dead because everyone was working from home.
yeah,
So then I was
yeah,
like, oh my God, like, how am I gonna, I've just got this new job, like, I've got bills to pay. Like, how am I gonna make this work? And I'd started to hear a couple of things about the word cadence, and I hadn't heard it before. And I thought I'd mention it because I know that unless you're probably in this sector, you probably
yeah,
haven't come across cadences, whereas you and I know what they are. And I started researching cadences, and I was thinking, right, okay, people are working from home more. You can't get hold of them in the office. So how else can you get hold of them? So that was when I thought, right, well, I'm going to have to use a combination of calling, emailing, and LinkedIn activity. And I found that actually it made it a lot easier because it took the cold element out of what I was trying to do.
yeah,
Because with a cold call, the person's like never spoke to you. You've got, literally seconds to make an impact and impression on them. And sometimes they might not even be the right person. You've just wasted your time. Whereas with looking at a cadence, which is the sequence of actions, and perhaps sending connection request on LinkedIn, viewing their profile to make sure they're the right person, then dropping them an
exactly.
email to say, I'm going to give you a call later this week. And then, then calling them. I was getting like such a better, contact rate. And actually that improved my contact rate by 5 times. So what I did in that role is, prior to that, I'd been leading like a operations department of like 70 telemarketers. And I said, right, I'm going to put myself back in. Like, I'm not going to hire anyone until I've figured it out myself. Because as a leader, and I know
Yes,
you're the
perfect.
same as this, again, we've
Yeah,
had the same conversation before. I was like, I can't employ people to do this if I can't do it myself. So as much as I literally hated the idea of cold calling again,
yeah,
I was like, you're going to have to do it. Like, if you want the respect in the role and you want to get it working,
exactly.
you don't know, no one knows it better than you. Get in and do it. And I'm so glad I did that because it taught me so much. It was hard work. Like, it
Yep.
was, I'm not going to swear, but it was really hard going. But over a period of a few months, I cracked it. And then I grew the team by 2 more people. And then in 10 months, it was enterprise. We were getting web demonstrations for. So the companies were like 20 million plus turnover with like chief marketing officers. And in like 10
Brilliant.
months, I think we got something crazy, like 120 web demos booked for the team to sit and sell to. And do you know what also happened to those, which was infuriating, was that the sales team at the time, you know them well, were so accustomed to amazing, hot, warm inbound leads that they were just so focused on the people that said, oh yeah, I want to look at this, that they
Yeah,
didn't give any time and attention. And I was getting annoyed by it. So one day I thought, you know what, F it. got on a demo with this customer that I'd booked in personally, and I literally sold him the product myself to prove a point that these were like top leads.
That is
But
leading
yeah,
by example.
yeah, literally. And it just taught me. And I wasn't even in sales. My job was to, pre-sales. But I was like, look, I'm going to prove a point. The leads we're getting are like just as good as inbound leads. Like, let me prove it to you. Like, I'm just going to sell to them. But yeah, so like cadencing and building trust is just the biggest thing. And I don't know if you've got any experience you'd want to share, because obviously what you're doing is building lead generation campaigns, aren't you? That's like your thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, completely. And that is true leadership, by the way. I know you said you're pre-sales there, but that
Yeah.
is just true leadership. And a lot of people need to
Yeah.
I know who you mean. Like sales teams, it's kind of, we've gone past the place now where everything's given to you on a plate. You have to be creative. And even when you are a salesperson, to any AE listening to this, make sure that every single op you get, whether it be like even a little bit cold, warm, hot, whatever, it's up to you to make the most of that opportunity. And you can make the opportunity. If there is an angle and someone's created it for you, you have to try and, so yeah, that's really kind of well played on that. Yeah. So an example I can actually give, a real example, is in my own business. So we were doing traditional things. Obviously, we've tried lots of different ways of generating leads, because over the years, again, done everything you can think of: cold email, telemarketing, LinkedIn, knocking on people's doors. Every way of generating leads, we tried it. So we typically in the SaaS role that I was in, you could identify 100 CMOs. You could write them a custom message on LinkedIn. You could ask them if they'd want to chat, and you would get a handful come back and say yes. And to a certain extent, when you are a business that an average order value is, say, 75k, well, those meetings are probably enough for you to do well. So that's what you do. You kind of get aligned to what works in that company.
Yeah.
I then moved and kind of went out and thought, right, okay, well, if this is working for me in this business, I can help everybody else do this in their businesses. But I was completely wrong. I realized that actually the way you approach lead generation has to be specific to the space that you're working in. Like the way that I help coaches isn't the same way I would help a SaaS company, because their audience reacts differently to an approach. So we started sending out cold DMs, didn't really get us too far at all. And then about 6 months ago, we thought, well, how can we lower that barrier to entry? How can we make, like you say, like how can we build a relationship with people before they commit time to us? Because that's the key.
Yeah.
If you can build some kind of relationship first, you've got it. It's up to you where you take that. So what we did was we created a 6-minute free training video about my business, what I do, how I help people, how I help them achieve success, focusing very much on the result they'll be able to drive. And rather than me pitching them anything at all, I now literally do a nice introduction. I ask them a question that typically I know the answer to it. It's going to be yes. I then say, I'd love to help you, but I've got nothing to sell you. So straight away when I say that sentence, I feel like the shoulders drop. It's like, okay, I'm going to try and get it in my diary. And I just say that we've got this free 6-minute training video, just talks you through the exact strategies that we've used to help us grow and scale over the last 9 months. Would you like to take a look? So it's like a really soft approach, but you're leading with free value and saying, listen, you've got nothing to lose here. But the good thing for me, and for anybody doing this, and people that I teach do this, is you've now created an opportunity out of nothing, that this person, if you hadn't have had that approach, would never have said yes. So we had last year, I mean, I put a post on last month, I put a post on LinkedIn a couple of days ago. We generated in our business 85 opt-ins, so 85 yes, please send me the free training video in the last 8 weeks, just with this approach. That's so amazing. Then it's like, compared to if we were to do like cold DMs, we were probably getting 2 a week come back saying yes, please. So the point is, I think it's just thinking outside the box, being creative. But like you say, you have to think, how can I build some kind of relationship and reduce the trust barrier? If you can do that while being creative, you're going to be, you're going to be in a good spot.
Yeah. And also you're not, I feel like there's also in lead generation for not everyone, but for a big chunk, I wouldn't want to guess the percentage, but people are so guarded about sharing how they do lead generation and talking about it. And it's like, well, why? Because everyone does it. So why not like even, share it? Like,
exactly.
Everyone's doing their own thing. So just don't be shy about talking about what you're doing. Like, we're all doing lead generation. Let's talk about what's working, because if we don't start talking about what's working, what's not working, it's not going to stop. And I think we almost need to build like a genuine, like, I don't know how we do it, but it's just like, it's not acceptable to send crappy sales DMs and pitch. I think they call it pitch slapping, don't they? It's like pitch slapping
Yeah.
needs to
Yeah.
end. But the reason that it's not ending is because people aren't educated in it, because people aren't being taught about it, because no one wants to talk about it. So you can't teach somebody something if they're not open to talking. And that's one thing that, struck me, is that, those messages I was sending, I wasn't trying to sell anyone anything. I had no agenda other than, who are you? Like, we're connected. Like, why are we connected? Let's learn about what we do. And let's have a conversation about what's working, what's not working. Because if we do that and we share it, then people will become more educated in it. And ultimately, gradually over time, the spamming will stop, because people understand that's not how to do it.
Exactly.
So I wish there was a magic wand. That would be my magic wand thing, I think, like to kind of educate everyone on how they should be doing it, rather than, the pitch slapping thing. So last question then, before we wrap up.
Yeah.
If you could, if you were talking to somebody who's just starting out on LinkedIn, or they're just starting out on lead generation, and they've not done it before, what would be the one thing that you would tell them to do and focus on?
So it is one thing, but it's three things, actually, because it's really important. I think to be successful, you have to get all these three things correct to start.
Yeah.
So the first one is, you need to make sure you've identified your target audience really clearly. So anything with lead generation, if you go the scattergun approach of just thinking, I can help people with lead generation, just as an example, I'm going to target everybody with lead generation for lead generation services. You have to be more specific than that. So I would say you have to make sure that you're ultra clear on your ideal customer profile, how to find them, where to find them, and how to source them. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I would really think outside the box. So just kind of going on my last point is, try to understand that industry inside and out. Get client feedback, or go and interview people, watch things on YouTube, really figure out where the pain, use ChatGPT if you want to, but really figure out the pain of the people that the people are experiencing within that space where you feel you can help them. So lead with problem solving, and lead with the destination that you can help provide. So that's all within your messaging. And then the third thing I would say is, make sure you're consistent. 90% of your success in lead generation isn't the initial outreach, it's the follow up. But then I would go and argue, say 80% of people don't do follow up. So if you think of it that way, it's a very, very crazy statistic to think that people have great intentions, they found the right people, they've got a great message, they send it, people don't get back, and they leave it. They think, I've not done very well. When actually 90% of that opportunity is in the follow up. So I would say, get those three things right, and you'll be in a good position. Then just pick a channel, stick to the channel, and incorporate other methods, and then that would be a good start.
Yeah, I agree. That's really great advice. That's really good advice. I've really enjoyed this.
I have. Thank you for inviting me, JD.
Good, isn't it? No, of course. Like, I genuinely, like I said at the start, you were one of the first people that I think LinkedIn is almost like networking. It's just virtual. And I found that when I first kind of started, getting in amongst it, you were somebody that made me feel welcome on the platform and made me feel I can do this. And I really like that. And I've always appreciated that. And I think that's what I want. If this just affects 10 people that, watch this, I mean, I'd be surprised if one person watches it, to be honest, but, two people are watching it because it's me and you. So,
exactly that.
I just want us to talk about lead generation, and I genuinely want to help. And I really like that about you, because I know that you genuinely want to help people as well. Like, we've not got don't get me wrong, we've both got to make money because we've got to survive, but ultimately we're both really passionate about helping people. And I think that's where people stand out on LinkedIn. There's two different types of people. There's people that are I've read this book and I'm just going to go and spam everyone because so-and-so shared this email copy or DM message that's got them 50 million replies. We want to help people, and that's, and that's key. If anyone has watched this, Carol's watching. Hi, Carol. If anyone is watching this and they've got any questions for me and James, please do drop them in the comments, because we'd be happy to answer them, because like James said, what did you work out, like 35 years worth of experience? So anything you're stuck with, drop it in the comments, because James and I'll be happy to help. If you're not connected to James but you're connected to me, go and connect with him, because his content is awesome and he posts some really good stuff, and he's a great guy. So go follow him, go connect with him, and I think I've got another one of these booked. I think Friday with one of my old teammates, Adam Weeks. You know Adam, don't you, James?
I do
Actually,
know Adam. That'll be a good one
yeah,
as well. Look forward to that.
it
I want to
will.
join that
Yeah,
one.
he's a legend. So Adam was in telemarketing as well. Used to be in my team back in the day, and I think we've agreed Friday, but I'll confirm that. But yeah, thank you for joining. If you've joined, whether it's been from work, home office, walking. And if you've not joined, you've absolutely missed out. So hopefully people can watch this back. But yeah, it was great, James. Thanks. I'll finish it.
Thanks so much, Jodie.
Thanks, James.
Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.